it looks like it. Looks like a me. Could everyone take your seats, please? She's here. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order, please. And at this time, would everyone rise? And the invocation will be given by Ron Watford from Love Inc.
Thank you. Let us pray. Father, we thank you for this great day you've given to us. We ask your blessings upon it. We pray your blessings upon every council member, every staff member. Give them your wisdom and your insight and your discernment. We bless this meeting and just turn it over to you and give guidance. We thank you for the community you've given to us, and may you be honored. In my Savior's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Councilman Staka, could you lead us in Pledge of Allegiance?
In honor, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilman McIntosh. Here. Councilwoman Martin.
Here.
Councilman Slaka.
Here.
Mayor Nelson.
Here.
Councilman Simmons.
Here.
Councilwoman Simons. Councilman Longcart.
Here.
Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Mayor.
All right, good. It's a beautiful morning, and we're going to have public comment on agenda items only. Anyone wishing to speak at this time on an agenda item, please come forward.
Good morning, Council. I'm Brad Cornell, and I'm here on behalf of Audubon, Florida, that owns Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary. And I'd like to address your agenda item 11D, which is the DRGR scope of services for the study that you got on your agenda today. I'm here. I've recently read the scope, and I would like to suggest that you, excuse me, that you consider some sorts of interlocal cooperation with Lee County on their portion of the DRGR, which obviously is very associated both geographically and in issues with Bonita Springs DRGR. There are, I think, you'll find if you look at this issue, there are some mutually benefiting aspects to doing that Lee County and Bonita Springs could benefit from. For instance, I think it would be helpful to look at coordination on sheet flow, water quality, flood protection, and aquifer recharge that could be benefited by interlocal cooperation on how we treat both of these DRGR areas. Also, extending the DRGR TDR program to Bonita Springs would allow for density to protect, using density leverage to protect the resources upstream from Bonita Springs. So if we're concerned about these flooding and sheet flow issues, you have an interest in making sure that Lee County's DRGR is managed and protected properly. The TDR program is an integral part of that protection process if you're following that. And they're in the process of revising and upgrading theirs. They've engaged Dr. Jim Nicholas to look at the TDR program. How can we make this better? How can we better protect wetlands and store stormwater so that we're not affecting downstream residential areas or urban areas? As part of that program, I think Bonita Springs would benefit by considering including that in their look at your own DRGR. So please consider putting that into specifically your scope of services. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Brad. Anyone else this time, please come forward.
Hey, good morning, Rick Steinmeier. Out in this DRGR area, we don't want to put septic tanks in, I don't believe. Maybe they want to have potable water out there. Is that already available? There's a big cost in doing that. And of course, then you got roads. And a more philosophical question is, do we really want more people in Bonita? What's the advantage of having more people, more problems, more pollution with more population? That's things to think about. Is it really an advantage for a city to overpopulate itself? So Nobody seems to think about that. You go to New York City, now tell me that's a good place to live.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time? Please come forward.
Good morning. Patrick Vaness with the Chamber, the Government Advisory Committee. I'm here to talk about the DRGR scope of work also. As a chamber, we think it's the right time to revisit the DRGR. There's been a lot of good work done in the past. And there will be development pressures coming shortly in that area. One thing that we'd like to suggest is that maybe you look beyond the scope that's identified on the map. The DRGR is one comprehensive area. Natural systems are interconnected, and any kind of development also that occurs there will have impacts to roadway systems, again, that go beyond those boundaries. So we think it's a good time to start looking at how things are going to happen in the future, but also looking at it a little more comprehensively and looking beyond those boundaries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time? Please come forward.
Good morning. For the record, Nicole Johnson here on behalf of the Conservancy of Southwest Florida. And first of all, we'd like to thank the city for the opportunity to provide input on this. This is an action-based scope of work, and we really applaud that because we agree we don't need another study. We need a true planning effort that will have an outcome that will be implemented. So we very much appreciate that. The Conservancy sees this process really as an opportunity to improve planning in the DRGR, with the result being a community vision that anticipates hydrologic restoration, addresses appropriate water quality and quantity concerns, protects environmentally sensitive lands, directs development to the locations where it is most appropriate, and incentivizes that development is done in a manner that furthers the city's vision for Bonita Springs. For these reasons, we wanted to share the Conservancy's input on some additions and clarifications to the scope of work that we believe will result in a more comprehensive and robust planning process, and hopefully will provide the city with a final product that answers the needs of landowners, the city, and the community. First, we ask you to consider identifying as an overall deliverable under the scope of work a vision for the DRGR. Right now you have action items that specifically include elements that deal with stormwater management, flowway protection, transportation infrastructure, and these are important components of an overall plan, but they should not drive the planning process. The DRGR plan should not be built around a set of specific stormwater projects or road networks. These should follow. Second, we recommend that community participation be a requirement of this process, and I think that was intended, but really to have it in there, I used the term charrette, and the city manager kind of cringed. Maybe it doesn't need to be a full charrette, but really engaging the public in this, that's going to be key. Third, we believe that getting the concepts in place, again, must be done first. Where does intensification of use make sense? What areas should be protected or restored and connected throughout the DRGR and to areas beyond the DRGR? What should be the ultimate density in the DRGR? You heard a public comment to that effect already this morning. And how density should be developed on any one project. Should there be commercial needs also addressed? These are the kinds of things that we believe need to be the basis, build in the infrastructure projects, and we believe that that is going to really accomplish this vision as a whole. That may be what was intended, but a little more specification we think could be helpful. And finally, as Brad Cornell brought up, we would ask that you add a specific bullet to keep the option available to work with Lee County on potentially transferring some of Lee County's DRGR transferable development rights into the city of Bonita Springs. This would not obligate the city in any way, but it would keep that avenue of discussion open, and we believe that's very important. And with that, the Conservancy thanks you for moving forward with the DRGR planning effort. We ask you to consider our suggestions for a more comprehensive planning process, and we look forward to participating. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else this time? Please come forward.
Good morning. My name's Dave McKee. I'm a member of the BSU Board of Directors and also a member of the Governmental Affairs Committee at the Chamber. Got a couple of opening remarks, and then I also have some more specific items I'd like to discuss regarding the scope when you get to the actual item on the agenda. I want to thank Carl for working with the Governmental Affairs Committee and with my subcommittee of Dennis Gilkey and Margaret Emlich to put this program together. We think it's got great promise. First thing I want to say, and I know I've said it to most of you many times before, this is not a groundwater recharge area. BSU has studied this site time and time and time again. It's not a groundwater recharge area. That should not be a consideration in this study. Right now it's really just a density reduction area. Secondly, BSU has plenty of capacity to serve this area. I think most of you know that we have 3 to 4 million gallons of excess capacity available right now and have the ability to expand in the future if we need to. Water and sewer should not be an issue if the city decides to grow this area. I think it's a win-win situation for both the city and the landowners out there, and of course BSU is one of the major landowners. It allows owners the possibility or the opportunity to reasonably develop their land within guidelines, obviously, that's set by this group. It also provides the city the opportunity to address many of the issues that are outstanding at minimal or no expense to them by setting up a municipal services benefit unit or a taxing base or a services area of some type. Things that have been mentioned previously this morning, the drainage, the sheet flow, the water quality, the transportation issues, those can all be reasonably addressed within this study, and I think it can all be paid for by the private owners out there. I know, speaking for BSU, if that's cost that has to be added to the land value, then certainly bring it on. That's what we'll do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. Anyone else, please come forward.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm Colin Hasty, and good to see you. I haven't been in for a while. It's nice to see everybody. I just wanted to mention a couple of quick things. I thought I really liked the comments that Nicole made. Two comments I have. I'm here, number one, to represent the city of Bonita Springs officially, because I was designated as the official river guy, the river guardian. I don't say river, we said river keeper back then, but then I got a comment from a lady that represented the river keepers up in New York, and she said we couldn't use that term because that was a copyrighted term. That was years ago. So I said, okay, I'll call myself the river guardian. So that's what I've been saying ever since, in case you ever hear that. My greatest concern with the DRGR, there are others that are as great, I'm sure, but my particular greatest concern on behalf of the river is that we don't do anything to cause the river to die the death of 1,000 cuts. And that seems to be what always happens to these beautiful rivers that run through metropolitan areas. As the metropolitan area grows, the river starts to decline in quality. And we're at a time right now when I suspect the appreciation of and use of, appropriate use of the river is going to greatly increase in the future. We have some really interesting plans that I'm sure everybody knows about along the river, particularly starting at Oakland Drive and running to the city limits out there, to the city-county line. There's a beautiful, beautiful river trail in the works, and I walked it the other day. You can walk faster from the flea market to the Bonita Nature Place. You can walk that about twice as fast as you can drive it, even on a normal traffic day. It's an amazing, amazing walk, and it's not quite connected at I-75 yet, but aside from that very thick, difficult patch right under I-75, I say thick with Smilex. We have to remove the Smilex under there, and we do need a couple, I'm sure most everybody's aware that we need a couple of boardwalks and one little footbridge, and we'll be ready to take that beautiful stroll. So that's a great concern of mine, is the health of the river. I don't want to see the use and appreciation of it increase at the same time the quality of the river is decreasing. That would be a shame. And then one other thing, pet peeve of mine, is I was on the LPA, as you know, for about 10 years and involved officially with the city, and I noticed that about 50% of the people concerned with the DRGR used the correct designation, and about 50% of the people always, I think on purpose, used the improper designation. It's not density reduction groundwater recharge. The word recharge isn't in there. It's groundwater resource, and that's a lot more than just recharge. So I think we should mention that, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time, please come forward on any agenda item.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor,
Hello.
members of council. My name is Bob Lenish. I'm a director of the Estero Council of Community Leaders. Many of you may know that I'm also a director of the Bonita Springs Estero Economic Development Council, the BSE EDC, if you will. And I'm here in support this morning of the BSE EDC because I think that a lot of progress has been made in the last year. A lot of groundwork has been laid. Some of the accomplishments are measurable, some aren't. But what I'm really excited about is the future, because that's what it's really all about. It's not what's been done in the last year and a half, it's the opportunities that this provides to Bonita Springs and Estero by developing initiatives and by working with potential people who want to move to the area, but also to expand existing businesses. And along that same vein, I'd like to congratulate City Council on the initiatives brought forward by the City Manager. I think that in many ways they are very creative, and I certainly hope that you will go ahead and approve them in their totality. I think they're a great addition to the city and will be very well benefiting the city over the longer term. The other comment that I wanted to make this morning is a reference to the relationship between Bonita Springs and Estero. I think one of the byproducts of the BSE EDC is that it has allowed a number of us who live or work in the Estero area to work with those of you who live or work in the Bonita area. And we've developed a lot of mutual trust and respect and admiration as a result of working together in that area. And I think that that just serves us all well going forward into the future. I want to borrow from something I heard from Councilman McIntosh a number of years ago. One of the first meetings that I went to in Estero, Councilman McIntosh was a speaker, and he said, I hope that all of you remember that we don't necessarily live in just Bonita Springs. We don't necessarily live in Estero. We all live in Southwest Florida. And I think one of the real advantages of the BSE EDC is that it's helped all of us to work together in more harmony, and I look forward to that relationship continuing in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Well done. Anyone else this time, please come forward
He said that.
on any agenda item. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and carry on. We'll go to proclamations and presentations. And at this time, would Nicole Perina, would you please come forward? Rousing applause. Hello. First of all, this is for 5 years of service, but gee, does it seem longer or shorter? It's a trick question. It really is. There's no right answer. There's no right answer. Nicole has done a fantastic job. She stepped into some shoes there. We'll say shoes. She stepped. Sorry, she stepped into some shoes there to take over the Parks and Rec program, and she's done a fantastic job. We're very proud of you. You've done a great job. You've been able to settle a lot of things out. You've been professional, thorough, polite. Thank you so much. You make us really proud, especially the way that you interact with our citizens. That is just awesome. Thank you so much. And it's my pleasure to give you this 5 years of service presented to Nicole Perino. As of the 7th day of January 2013, an appreciation and recognition for the 5 years of public service to the city of Bonita Springs, and may I add, to the citizens of Bonita Springs and this city council. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Everybody. Wow.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Get me a note. Yeah, thank you.
Now, it's also a pleasure for me to ask Trudy Williams, would you please come forward? Everyone, please give Trudy a hand there. I mean, please, thank you so much. Trudy served as our representative for this area for quite a while. 8 years. Yeah, I was hunting for an answer, and she gave me one. He's like 18. I know that feeling. But and so do my constituents. Anyway, But I got to tell you, you did a fantastic job for us. Trudy's always been there for us. And I have to tell you, from my standpoint, it is so nice to be able to call a representative who you can talk to, who is, quite frankly, rational, who understands the subject matter, who really gets onto things, who is responsive. Trudy, you were all those things. I really appreciate it so much. And I'm so proud to have known you and had the association we did. And you know what? I know that you're going to continue working for Southwest Florida for quite some time to come here. And so thank you so much. And it's with great pleasure that the City of Bonita Springs presents you with this certificate of appreciation for Trudy K. Williams for your support and dedication to this city here and all the citizens while you were serving on the Florida House of Representatives. Trudy, thank you so much on behalf of the citizens in the council. You did a great job. Everyone, please give her another big hand. Say a few words, please.
Well, thank you. It's on. Thank you. This is truly an honor. It's been a privilege serving the folks of Southwest Florida the past 8 years, and I hope, and I'm glad to hear that my door is always open. I hope to always have that that philosophy, and I hope others who are now representing Southwest Florida have that same philosophy. I remember how hard we worked for the snag and drag, cleanup of the canal. It was just of paramount importance, and it took forever. But persistence paid off eventually. And Carol Green does a great job representing you up in Tallahassee. So thank you so much, folks.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, of course I do. Diesel?
Okay, at this time, we have a quarterly report from the Economic Development Council. Rich,
Good morning.
how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good. I'm Richard Mancini with Henderson, Franklin, Starnes, and Holt, and here representing the Bonita Springs Estero Economic Development Council. Thank you for inviting us back. It's our pleasure to be before you to give you an update on our activities. We haven't seen you since the new year, so Happy New Year to everybody. 2013 is laying out to be a great year for what we're attempting to do with the Bonita Springs Estero Economic Development Council, and our partnership with the city continues to grow, continues to be incredibly cooperative, and quite honestly continues to be looked at from communities all over the state and all over the country as an example of what a public-private partnership is supposed to look like. We had prepared a report for you, and I think the last time we were here, it was a suggestion to the council that we come back on a quarterly basis for a brief update to let you know what we've been doing and answer any questions you might have about what we've been doing as an economic development council. Included in your previous package, there was some information. We gave you some additional information this morning, and I'd just like to go through that very briefly and highlight some of the things that the council has accomplished over the last quarter. One of the main things that people look at from an economic development standpoint is, what companies you're working with, what are you doing, where you're getting the leads, and the report highlights we are currently working with a corporate headquarters location from out of state who is looking to relocate into Southwest Florida. We've been in regular contact with them. They are part of our prospect list, and we're working with them. We're working with another out of state relocation for another facility located in Bonita Springs. And there's an in-state company that we're working with that's looking to expand their operations in Florida, and they're looking at Bonita Estero as one of the locations to do that. That's the information we can give you on those prospects right now, just to let you know we're working with them on a regular basis. They've interfaced with city and our team, and we're continuing to work on those, and hopefully we can have some announcements at the next quarterly report that some of those prospects have been confirmed, and we can make some announcements about them expanding their operations or relocating and creating more jobs in Bonita Springs, which is really our goal. One of the things we can report is that a company, Green Building Technologies company, has merged with another company, and they're going to locate their operations in Bonita Springs. We don't have any job figures or economic impact figures for that yet, but as we get that information, obviously, and we're allowed to share that publicly, we will bring that back to the council to do that. One of the things, as you recall from our scope of work and our strategic plan, is we are very focused on, and I think all of us are very concerned about existing industries and existing businesses. We don't want to lose the great quality companies that we already have in Bonita Springs, and we're working with two of our employers and our businesses here in Bonita who are considering looking at other marketplaces to host their facilities, and we're working with them very carefully and very closely to make sure that we don't lose that opportunity. Retention is as important. If you recall back from our previous presentations, some 80% of new jobs created are created from existing businesses and existing companies, and we want to make sure we don't lose those folks because they're great corporate citizens, but we also want to make sure we can support them and help them so when it's time for them to expand and add jobs, those jobs come to Bonita Springs. We're developing, again, in cooperation with the city and what we're working on, we're working closely on developing a plan to help support the slots initiative at the Naples-Fort Myers Greyhound track. Obviously, the economic impact of that, if ultimately approved by the legislature, is going to have a great financial and employment impact on Bonita Springs, and we want to make sure we're part of that process, and we've interfaced with those folks on a regular basis to help. Again, part of our plan has always been what we called an internal and external marketing program. The internal marketing program has been underway for a while, and it is quite satisfying that we're getting calls from folks in other regions of Southwest Florida who say, hey, we've heard about what you guys are doing, we've heard about what you're working on, and ask questions about the economic development function, and again, mostly the cooperative nature that we have through the MOU and through our work with the city. And we'll continue to work on that, meet with county leaders and other leaders in the area to highlight Bonita Springs, to highlight the Bonita Springs Estero Economic Development Council and what we've accomplished over the last quarter. Part of our plan is working in cooperation with our partners, and in the report you'll note that at the International Real Estate Conference in Orlando, representatives from Bear were there, and they took our brochures, the EDC brochures, the Bonita Springs brochures with them, distributed over 1,000 of those to international real estate agents from all over the state and all over the world that were there for the conference. Again, the beginnings of a really great program to expand our view and have people know that we're here and what we're doing. We represented the council at the Florida Redevelopment Association Conference on small town redevelopment. We've represented the city and the council at the local broadband advisory committee, and we're also representing the council with partners in Collier County on furthering our concept and our work for regionalization. Again, what we've talked about this a lot. There are a lot of positives that happen outside of the city necessarily that have a positive impact on the economics and the economic development within the city. From a operational standpoint, our website, and I hope you regularly jump on there to take a look at what we're doing, and we post updates when we can, and we're allowed, and I'll put them on the website. But we've updated the news and events section of the website, and we continue to make that a work in progress. As you all know, the internet is an amazing form of communication, and if you don't stay on top of it and continually update it, it gets stale and folks stop coming back to look at what you're doing. So we're really taking an initiative to make sure that information stays fresh and updated. And you'll notice in your report through the Google Analytics that we kind of track how many people are looking at the website. And for me, the more important number is the new visitors number. We're able to track through Google, or Google's able to track and tell us how many first looks folks are making. And as you can see in December as an example, although the total number of visits were down a little bit, which you would expect during the holiday season, the number of new visitors to the site was up. About 80% of those looks were folks that have looking at the site for the first time. And that's an encouraging number because it means folks are out there looking for us or hearing about the website and coming to look at the EDC for the first time. And we'll continue to work with our internet technology folks to make sure that number is as big as it can be to get the exposure for Bonita Springs and for the EDC. One of the things we've been reporting to you over the last couple of quarters is permit use, and in your report you'll see in the fourth quarter between October and December there were 29 new businesses in Bonita Springs. There were 8 businesses that relocated within the city limit. Those represent potentially about 119 new employees and about 73,000 square feet of space. And I think that's, again, an encouraging number. You would expect the fourth quarter to be a little bit slower because of the holidays. Folks don't tend to necessarily open right at the holidays. It's usually right before or after the holidays are over. So we expect those numbers to continue to trend up, and we'll continue to work with anybody that comes in and asks for help with their business or their economic development in Bonita Springs. Since our last update, we've handled 14 direct leads, and again, we try to quantify that for you very carefully. This is not just 14 phone calls. These are 14 folks who are qualified leads, folks that are calling in to get information about their businesses or to get information about economic development in Bonita Springs. We currently have 3 confidentiality agreements in effect, which means we've now been engaged with these folks to help them with the site selection process, to help them with the economic development process. And as we've discussed, there's some confidentiality issues that a lot of companies have. They don't want their competitors or anybody else to necessarily know they're looking, and sometimes their employees too, until they're ready to make an announcement, and that's why that's there. And then one of the other things that we focused on, and I think it's very important as we look at the existing industry and existing business program, you know, there are a lot of restaurants and retailers and boutiques and shops that are small businesses, the heartbeat of any economy. And we want to make sure we don't neglect those folks or in any way try to overlook them. And you'll see in your report there's a list of a number of those kinds of businesses that we've interfaced with and helped, in a brief description of how we've tried to help and interface with them. A lot of that is helping them get to the right folks within the city to answer their questions about whether it's permitting or different uses and that kind of stuff. And that's part of our partnership that makes it so wonderful. It's really rare, and I know we say this a lot, but I think it's important to hit on that. It is very rare to come to a community or be in a community and be able to make one phone call and get answers to a whole series of questions on a lot of different topics. And I think that's very important. We always list and update the in the news sections, and there was a great article, and I hope you've all seen it. It came out of northern New Jersey. It's actually out of the old, used to be called the Bergen Record, now it's just called the Record, a pretty well-known newspaper up in the northern part of New Jersey. And it was a wonderful piece about Bonita Springs. And so there's a link to it in your information. If you haven't read the article, it was very nicely done. It is our intent to continue to establish relationships and contacts with media folks all over the country, especially in markets where we know we're getting folks coming in, the Midwest and the northern Midwest, where we know we have a large influx during season. We want the story of not only Bonita Springs to be a wonderful place to come during season, but if you're here half the year, well, why shouldn't your business be here? And those are the kinds of stories and information we're going to try to continue to expand on. The last couple of pages of the report that we gave you are the vacancy and the square footage numbers. As you know, from the very beginning of this process, we identified vacant space, and one of our goals is to fill that space as best we can and assist to make sure that space gets filled. And the reports are there. Again, fourth quarter numbers are traditionally not all that great because it's just not a time of year when folks are necessarily opening new businesses and taking down additional space. We hope to see those numbers trend up beginning in the first quarter of this year and continuing through the rest. And the other thing that makes those numbers very dynamic is when something new comes online and adds square footage to the overall pool, obviously those numbers move up and down. And for the first time in quite a while, we've seen some additional new space come online, which is bad when you're looking at the overall vacancy rate, but as a trend looking forward into what the rest of 2013 has to offer, we think is a very positive thing. There's additional information we have on again, the overall aspect of economic development and what we're doing. 2013, again, I think is very much primed from an overall economic standpoint, but specifically for a Southwest Florida and Bonita Springs standpoint, to be a very good year. Our mechanisms are in place. We're able to capture a lot of folks. We're getting phone calls from site selectors. We're getting phone calls from realtors, the folks that are looking. The initiatives that you are taking with the impact fees and the incentives that you're talking about implementing are a great positive addition to the overall package that we can offer businesses as they look at Bonita Springs. That's my quick report, and any questions?
Council, you have any questions for Rich?
Just a quick comment. Rich, thank you for your work. Christine, it was nice to see several members of the EDC here today speaking on different opinions of the EDC. Thank you for that. Clearly, you're making an impact on this city, so thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions or comments? Yes. Pete.
With that article, and I posted that article on my personal Facebook page. How did that come about? I'm just kind of curious. Did somebody have with the Associated Press, or was it a writer that had been down here?
We're going to find that out. We don't know. It was that, and again, sometimes lucky is as good as anything else,
Right.
and that was just a great article that was published. We're not going to take any credit for it because we didn't have the early interaction with it, but as soon as we found it, it got posted. We've now distributed it to a lot of folks because it is a great article, and we've now had interaction with some other reporters in different parts of the country to duplicate that same type of article.
Which was my follow-up, yeah.
Well, you're going to have to get over that not taking credit for stuff.
You know what? Before I moved to Florida, I lived in Bergen County, New Jersey. I lived in a little town called Oakland, so
Well,
I
there
will
you
take,
go.
I will take credit for it. They remembered me, and when they saw the name from 30 years ago, they wrote the article. That's what happened.
Yeah, I'll work with you on that.
Have we had any telephone calls from northern New Jersey as a result of that article? Yeah.
Besides my friends and family, not that I know of. Although we can track those as they come in. Obviously, we try to keep a pretty accurate record of the area codes and the zip codes where prospective calls are coming in from. So we can, as time goes on, that data becomes more and more important and more useful. Because then we start to identify trends and pockets and focuses, and it gives us some idea of where we need to take our marketing and take the information out of Southwest Florida.
Right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Anything else? Go ahead, Steve, and then we'll come to Bill.
I just want to thank you. I know that Arlene was involved, and I can't remember who the other person was involved, but maintaining a business here. I don't know, is that business still on hold? I mean, have they made a decision to stay in Bonita yet?
We've had success with a number of them. I don't know which one in particular we're talking about. We've got two that are important. They're international in scope, and we're still working with those. The final decision hasn't been made, but I think from our perspective, it looks very promising on both of those.
Good, thank you.
Good. Bill.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you for the quarterly report. I find it very interesting, and I also find that the progress that you've made since the beginning, because we've all been here since the beginning, to see what's happened in the short time that you've had the program going. I see very positive results from it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate that very much.
And Council, I have to tell you that being able to kind of firsthand watch the interaction between our city staff, between the EDC, between Arlene, and community development over there, I think we've all created something really good here, really unique. And when we talk about cooperation and working with it, that's not just a saying. That's actually happening, and people really appreciate it, and it impresses anybody that comes to Bonita and sees that red carpet treatment they're getting. They find it hard to believe, quite frankly. So, well done for all of you. Thank you very much.
Well done from the city and from Carl and the staff and everybody. It's really a pleasure, and it really does work. I mean, the cooperation, as the mayor said, is not just words. It's really a functioning cooperation that is fun to deal with, because in other places I've been, it's just a word. Here it's actually functioning, and it's great.
Good deal. Thank you very much, Rich.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, Council, we're to the consent agenda. What's your pleasure?
I move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? There's a second from Bill. Any other comments on it?
Just one, Mayor.
Yes.
On D, Bill, those two people that got credentials that are unbelievable, so hopefully they'll be very supportive of the task force.
That's true. Thank you.
Okay, good. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slakta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Okay. All right. We are to public hearings, and the public comment will be allowed on these items. We have a first reading and public hearing here. Go ahead.
Yes, and this is an amendment to the Bonita Springs Land Development Code, Chapter 4 zoning, amending the old US 41 redevelopment overlay district to require a color palette within the old US 41 redevelopment urban core, amending sections 4-1152 through 4-1156, purpose and intent, overview of the redevelopment overlay district, standards for both within and outside of the old US 41 redevelopment urban core that comprise the old US 41 redevelopment overlay district, providing for conflicts of law, severability, codification, Scrivener's errors, inclusion in code, and effective date. This is a first reading. The second reading will be held on February 6, 2013. I have reviewed the affidavit of publication, which is on file at the clerk's office, and it is legally sufficient. The ordinance has been reviewed by the local planning agency twice, and they have reviewed it for consistency with the comp plan and found it consistent with the comprehensive plan. The ordinance was modified to have the language that council felt was appropriate. There was some additional changes, and the changes are marked in yellow in the document. One was an LPA change that was previously, and council has seen that previously, and that was just the one about any other color palette may be approved by council on a case-by-case basis. The other change is staff driven related to food vendors, so that there is no inconsistency in the ordinances. Pages 7 and pages 8 were modified as to restaurants and non-store retailers relating to food carts in the Old 41 area.
Okay. Is there anything else? No? That's it?
That's it, sir.
Okay. Community development, anybody else have anything to add or no? No, you're good? Council, what's your pleasure? Would you like to send this to a second reading?
So move.
And we're going to have public comment.
Public
We have a motion and a second. And at this time, we'll go ahead and have public comment on this item. Anyone wishing to speak towards this hearing, come forward at this time. Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. We'll close public hearing. And we have a motion and a second. Any comment from council before we move on? Roll call.
Councilman Slakta.
Aye.
Mayor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilman Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman Longcart.
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh.
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin.
Aye.
Okay. And we'll go ahead. That's when is the date for that again?
February 6th.
February
at
6th.
5 p.m.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. What else do you have for us?
The next item is a resolution to create an administrative code setting forth certain protocols for Public Works Department related to unpaved or inadequately maintained private roads, inadequate private drainage infrastructure, or enhanced buffering for private property. John Gucciardo can probably explain the code better than I as to how the protocols, these were how to weigh and make the determination when we receive a citizen request, how to go forward.
Okay, John.
During the strategic planning session, these are 3 items that council was asked to discuss and give staff some guidance on. These are the situations where, in the past, on a case-by-case basis, council would be receive requests from residents about certain functions that usually would involve expenditure of some city funds. We're often in a situation where there's a legal threshold where the determination has to be made as to whether or not it would be appropriate to spend city dollars on what would be private issues or private property issues. So we've divided those categories into the 3 that you see in front of you, basically having to do with private roads, private maintenance of drainage infrastructure, and also the issue of buffering adjacent to city roadways. What we've tried to do is develop a checklist, basically, that staff could use when these kind of requests come forward. And as you can see from the checklist that we've prepared, the first threshold would be to see if there is some other entity that is responsible, that is still in existence and viable, that we would basically then just contact and work out the issues with primarily. If that's not the case, then it would default to whether or not city action should be taken, and the scoring matrix that we've set up would be applied by staff members rather than council to try to put some objective criteria to the issue at hand. So in other words, we would have a particular set of issues that we'd be looking at. We would try to evaluate those issues by independently with the 3 members, put a ranking to those, and then add up the score and see if it meets the threshold that we've determined for action. It's also important to recognize that we've tried to tie this back to the criteria that the council identified during the strategic planning session. And we've also tried to tie it into the budget process. That is to say that if this is a particular issue that council has already identified as a priority and already identified as one that they want to act on, we would then trigger that into the upcoming budget cycle so that we wouldn't have to go through the scoring matrix. It would automatically be done. These protocols that we've set up are expected to deal with those few and far between rare occasions where we do have a request from a resident or residents for action on one of these isolated incidents. We also expect that the protocol will evolve over time. We don't get to use them that often. We have put these into effect just on a test case with a couple of the issues that have come up, but we don't expect that we'll be using them all that often. But because of that, as examples come in, we may come back to you with some recommended changes to, maybe tweaking the scoring. I also want to address the comments that you've seen from Councilwoman Simons. We've shared some emails back and forth. As you know, I sent this out to all the council people about a month or so ago just to get some initial feedback, and Councilwoman Simons and I have traded some emails back and forth about her concerns on the drainage protocol, dealing with the drainage infrastructure. She was concerned that we weren't specific enough about addressing water quality issues as well as quantity issues. In other words, it's not just a matter of the drainage infrastructure, whatever is the pond, not functioning in terms of keeping water moving and backing up, but also the water quality issues. We think we have, and part of that is built into the way we've got the language in the scoring matrix. For example, one of the key elements is whether or not it's a health and safety issue as opposed to just an aesthetic issue. And to our way of thinking, that is something that staff would then be applying and score the particular situation accordingly. And obviously, if it's a water quality, it would rank much higher in terms of priority than something that's just an aesthetic issue. So while I appreciate the councilwoman's concerns, I think we've addressed it, and I've asked her to allow us to let this thing evolve. And as I said, if situations come to our attention that don't seem to be working out the way we intended, we'd probably bring that back to you for clarification.
Okay, good. Good. Council, I have to tell you that this kind of answers, I'll take a little time here. I've always felt like that I think sure you share this with me, that one thing we want in our decision making is fairness and equity for everybody that comes in here. And that also that in order to do that, we have to weigh these situations without prejudice and without politics entering into it. And I think that this, having a criteria, we've been working on this for quite a while, having this criteria is a big step in towards that. It doesn't preclude anybody from saying, well, look, there are special circumstances outside that. So I think that still leaves the door open for some other things. But I think that this really is a good step towards that. But
I agree.
What's your thoughts, Council? Yes, Steve.
May I? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This part of this and most of this has been going on for several years. And frankly, Carl took a lead on several of these pieces that probably wouldn't have happened otherwise, so thank you. But if it wasn't for John doing the backup work in the background, it wouldn't have gotten to this point. I'm very, very impressed with and proud of our city staff, and this is just another example. I would make the motion to push this forward ahead when the time comes.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Public?
Go ahead.
If anybody in the public wishes.
Oh, I beg your pardon. It's a resolution, but it's an administrative code. So, okay, thank you. Any of the public at this time wish to speak on this matter? Please come
yes,
forward.
Rick Steinmeier. It's a shame these private roads aren't paved by the people who own them, like the old-fashioned way. People who live down here for years know that they've paved a lot of roads, private roads. I hope you can't build a house on a dirt road anymore in the city of Bonita Springs. Is that precluded from happening again? That's my question.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time? Please come forward. Seeing none, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mayor Nelson.
Aye.
Councilman Simmons.
Aye.
Councilman Longcart.
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh.
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin.
Aye.
Councilman
Aye.
Salata.
Okay, and in answer to Rick's question, I mean, there is nothing that precludes anyone from building a house on a dirt road.
We actually have a comp plan requirement, usually for minimum use determinations. It has to be compacted, but compacted may not necessarily, I mean, it depends on how one defines a road. I mean, does it mean that it's going to meet the current standards? Maybe not.
Yeah, just because it's dirt doesn't preclude it, though. Just as long as it's compacted.
It has to be compacted, it has to be set up a certain way, and a lot of people confuse driveways and roads also.
Yeah, okay, all right. There you have it. Yes, John?
If I can beg your indulgence for just another minute, I'd like to, if it's okay, give you a quick update on the unpaved roads project that you had us working on.
Yep, go ahead.
Separate and apart from this protocol, we identified for you a list of unpaved private roads within the city, and the city council agreed to let us go ahead and try to address 8 of those, what we deem to be the highest priority of those private unpaved roads. That started during the summer with a series of meetings with those residents. We've now boiled that down to 5 of the 8 that we think we're going to be able to go forward with. Those are Melrose, Maiden, Pine, Smoky, and Somerset. The reason why it's taken as long as it has to get to this point is because we initially went out with point people that were volunteers from each of those streets. They contacted the residents. They were able to ascertain that there was a general consensus to go ahead to allow us to do that. We had evidence of that with signed license agreements, but those signed license agreements were not completed at that point because we didn't have a real cost estimate. Once we knew that we could work with those streets, we went out to get some estimates. Just last week, we got the last of 3 estimates in. They range anywhere from about $90,000 to about $160,000. So right now, what Public Works is doing is we are going to boil down those prices 2 different ways. One is as divided amongst all of the record title owners, basically, of the properties on those streets, and then the second way would be just divided amongst those record title owners on each particular street. So one would be in total, one would be just as per the street cost, because the estimates we got in were also broken down per street. We want to see which is the most equitable, frankly. And once we have that determination, we'll go back to the property owners with a license agreement that has the actual number that they'll be obligated to pay us. We assume at that point that because these estimates are within the ranges we originally thought they would be, that we're going to have their acquiescence. Once we get those in, we'll be able to go out and have the work done hopefully sometime this spring. But it's taken a while to get to this point. We've been in constant contact with the point people on those streets, and I'm pretty confident that once we get those license agreements out with an actual price involved, we'll be able to get the consents and go ahead with the project.
All right, good. Any questions? Good.
Yeah, John, clarification, does that mean that 3 out of the 8 do not want their roads paved?
Not so much a matter of them not wanting their road done. I think they would all like to have it done. But we did have, for example, on some of the streets, issues with getting the signed license agreements back. A lot of those streets in particular had rental properties where the residents, the renters who were living there, obviously have an interest in doing it, but the actual record title owner of the property may not be willing to put forward some dollars. So what we're really hoping is that if we can get this project done on those 5 streets, we can then use that as kind of the marketing template to go back to some of the other streets and say, look, it really can work. City really is putting up 80% of the cost as opposed to 20% from the property owners, and there is a benefit. So if we can get one under our belt, we're hoping that helps us with the others.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, Council? Rick, I'm going to take public comment in a little bit. Well, I'll get you then, okay? It's right after this.
Before the vote?
Have a seat.
There is no vote.
There's no vote.
I was just giving an update.
We've already taken, there's no vote on this. Okay?
All right.
Okay? Good. Any other questions? Yes.
A little outside of the box, but Shangri-La, anything different there necessarily?
Well, the Shangri-La project is a separate city-owned property.
I understand. Like I said, outside of the box, but.
But I guess the good news on that is that Phase 1, the drainage piece, is almost all completed at this point. We have gone through, with Audrey's help, the order of takings so that we have the right to go on to the property and do the actual expansion of the roadway. At this point, the timing looks like it's going to work out as we had originally estimated, so we're hoping to go out to bid February, March.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Okay. Good. Let's see. We'll go to public comment at this time. Anyone wishing to speak this time, please come forward on any subject.
Okay, well, now that I have the answer whether it's you can build a house on a compacted dirt road. Now, that opens us up to 20% costs. People, hey, I'll build a house, and then I'll pay 20% of the cost of building the road. Doesn't that open us up to future situations? It sounds like it to me. If you build a house, you ought to have the road finished, rather than come back 10 years from now and say, oh, I want to build for 20% on a dollar. So, thank you.
Interesting. Thank you. Anyone else this time? Please come forward on any subject. Well, most any subject. We'll see what, that's okay. Don't get too creative on me here.
Good morning and Happy New Year to everybody. For the record, I'm Kathy McGrath. Unfortunately, Cullum has left. He made the front page of Tropicalia, sitting in Howard Hughes's chair. You know, I have known this man, been acquainted over 25 years, and I learned so much that I didn't know about him. We owe him so much, what he's done for Bonita. And amongst it is, of course, one of my favorite places, Bonita Nature Place. And I just want to let everyone know that we are now open on Tuesday through Saturday from 9 to 1, and on Sunday, of course, from noon to 5. So please, all of you people, not only Nature Place, crawl out of your cocoon and get out in the great outdoors and enjoy this beautiful weather. We're the envy of everyone. And mentioning parks in this same Coastal Life, beautiful article on parks, and they included Nature Place with the big guys, Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary, Croatian, I won't name them all, even Riverside Park is there. And one of my favorites is Island Park, and a lot of people don't know about it. Just cross the railroad tracks, walk over the footbridge, and that's a real urban oasis. But remember, bring back what you take in. I mean, it's a park you can just go there and enjoy, but there's no facilities there. And mentioning that, I noticed there was criticism recently to city officials about certain parks, and I want to mention one of them in particular was River Park. Anytime the public has access to the river, to the water, it's a plus. And that is a passive park. It's a stopover for the Calusa Blue Wave paddling thing. Yes, there are no facilities or restrooms, but there's a nice long boardwalk, and I do see people there because I collect the monofilament there, so I know they're fishing there, which leads to the last thing I'm going to mention, and thank you, Bill and Rick, who brought me extra articles on the monofilament program, which, as a little side story, the day before that picture was taken, I had something cut out of my forehead, and I had this huge bandage over my head and the biggest black eye you've ever seen. And Andrea says, don't worry, I'll take a picture of the monofilament. But we are so pleased.
Yep.
I mean, this is fantastic. I've got about 40 pounds of monofilament, so we are being effective. The one thing is, the one person who did not get recognition, who was so big in this, is Gary Price. Richard Ferreira went to Gary. Gary's the one that went to Bonita Springs Utilities to fabricate the things, not me. And then Gary came and said, will the Imperial River Conservancy take over collecting? Well, I said, sure. For 21 years, we've done waterway cleanups, and all we cared was that it wasn't in the mangroves or the water. So why not recycle it? This company, they use, I think, plastic milk bottles, monofilament, and they make fish habitat. And you can buy one for $75. You can have your own little artificial reef, so to speak, if you want it. But anyway, I'm so proud of this, and thanks for the opportunity. Now, speaking of the Imperial River Conservancy, our own Matt Feeney from Public Works is going to be our speaker at our February-March meeting. Everyone's welcome. 6 o'clock, Barefoot Boat Club, 5025 Bonita Beach Road, just before you go over the Fish Trap Bridge. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time? Please come forward. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and go to the city attorney's report. Do you have anything for us today?
No, sir.
Okay. City manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got several items today. First off, I want to call your attention to the financial report. We bring this to you on a monthly basis, and as you can see, we're still in great shape, and we appreciate the work of all our employees and the responsible way in which they manage our budget. This month in particular, we also want to call your attention to the fact that once again, for 2012, that the city has earned, actually it was 2011, I apologize, the Certificate of Achievement in Excellence in Financial Reporting that is awarded only to those cities that meet the highest standards of financial reporting in terms of professionalism, accuracy, transparency, those kinds of things. And that is awarded by the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada. So I want to thank Lisa Pace and her entire staff for the great job they did on that.
Yes,
So,
she did.
Lisa. Monthly project report, you'll notice that we didn't have any particular thing to report, so we didn't. Moving on to actually C, which is the strategic plan update. No one's asked about a strategic plan update. You may be wondering why I even brought this up, but typically when you have a strategic plan in place, there's some expectation, at least on some folks' part, that we're going to update it on an annual basis. I will tell you that given the amount of staff that we have, and they're all excellent, but there's few of us, and given the fact that we are moving along on your strategic plan and on your priorities in a very methodical fashion, we have provided to you a pretty detailed status report of where we are on each of those items. We've got sustainability coming up for a workshop. I think in February is what the date's been set, so that's coming along. But if there's any expectation that it's been a year, let's do an update to the strategic plan, I would suggest that perhaps the timing would be unfortunate for that. We have a lot of things left to do. We also provided you a list of about 28 focus items for 2013. Not that we'll get them all done, but those are big projects that we need to keep our eye on the ball there. So we're pretty busy, bottom line, and we would ask that the council just allow us to have about another 12 months to see how much farther we can get on the strategic plan that you've already adopted. And that's really that. So any objection to that, anybody?
Nope. Any council? Good.
Okay.
How
By
about-
the way, that 28-item list is probably actually going to be 29 or 30. There's a couple of things sitting on the horizon, but there will always be things coming. So we'll continue to do the best we can to serve the council and the residents as we have in the past. All right. The next item is something that has seen some public input today, as also through the email system, and that is the proposed DRGR planning scope of work. Thank you very much, Councilmember Longcart, for handling the lights. We have before you, up on the screen, a map that was actually presented to you about a month ago when we had our last meeting, and it was talking about the part of the DRGR area that at least I was talking about when I brought this forward to you. There are individuals who think that we need to go farther south than that, extend it farther down, and include the entire DRGR area. My concern is a couple of things with that proposal. Number one is I think we need to try to break the area up and handle pieces that we can handle. The second part is this particular part of the DRGR is the area that's probably you're going to see, if the council allows it, you will see the most volume and the most activity in this area. And so even though the uses, so we're talking about this area for potential, and what's been discussed here is true, for the vision, for the activity, whether it's going to be residential, commercial, those kinds of things, all those activities would be up there, but they would well impact places south of there, like Terry. What are we going to do about transportation, those kinds of things. So the study that we're proposing would actually reach down south outside this box, but it wouldn't be dealing with uses down south. It would be dealing more with transportation, water flow, water quality, those kinds of things that have already been talked about. And also one of the comments that Councilmember Martin indicated last month and also reiterated in an email to me is what's the impact on the neighbors, the residents. And so it will reach down in there, but it's not going to talk about the uses there. You got a lot more owners down there as well in the south. We've got planned, in fact, I'd like to add to the scope of work today that we will also be talking to the landowners up there in the northern section. There's about 4 major ones, and we think they could be, they're key stakeholders, obviously, and this could impact them one way or the other, so we'd like to add that to the folks that we'll be talking to. So anyway, so I wanted you to get an idea, because I think some people were confused that we were talking about the entire DRGR, And I'm really thinking we'd probably try to compartmentalize this just a little bit, but still deal with the important issues that have been discussed. That scope of work has been presented to you in your packet as you requested. It's been looked at by folks, some of the owners of the properties. It's been looked at by community development, by Arlene and some of the other, and Audrey, some of the other folks on staff. We feel pretty comfortable with it. The comments that have been made today have been great ones. We did not talk about a vision and charrettes and meetings with the residents. We're happy to do that. I will tell you that I'm a little bit sensitive. We always welcome public input, and we're prepared to hold a meeting or two like that just to make sure that we include everyone. But I'm pretty sensitive to the budget we may have on this, and I'm really trying to keep this very, very focused on the outcome that the council will need to make decisions down the road here as to whether or not to change the comprehensive plan and allow for additional density to resolve some of the issues in the area. The issue of dealing with the county and talking to them about TDRs, transfer of development rights, and I told you this in December, I'll tell you now, I'm not a fan of transfer development rights. I haven't seen where they've really worked. However, that does not preclude a conversation with the county to talk about what we're looking for inside the yellow box, if you will, as well as looking at north and what the county has proposed north of us, Edison Farms and beyond. So we're happy with that, but I look forward to the council's input on this, and hopefully we'll get approval to move forward on the selection of the consultant to move this forward.
Okay. Council, any discussion, any questions? Yes, Janet.
Sure. I definitely would like to see, the public brought into this. First off, we want to hear their concerns and also their ideas on what they would like to see as the future vision. And also, I think the second part of that is most important, is that they get firsthand a feeling from what we're thinking about. I don't want to see this turn into rumors and that people getting misinformation, because that's when it will get totally out of control. So I think that this will work very well if we can at least have everybody on the same page and work forward to make this work.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Good. Yes, anyone else this time? Yeah, Steve.
Carl, thank you for taking this forward. The Bonita Springs Utilities has a business plan in place to put together a solar field on that 400 acres they own. I'd ask you to incorporate and take a look at that business plan before we come to a conclusion. We have the ability to be able to create power in the state through solar, and without some support from private enterprise and our city government as well as the state, we'll never get it done. So if you'd include that, I'd certainly appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Actually, BSU is one of the landowners up there, major landowners, and yes, we will be including those folks in conversations. Absolutely, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Yes, Pete.
I just want to echo Janet's, in terms of public feedback and public input, absolutely 100% in favor of that. And as I had indicated before, in my mind, it's absolutely foolish to not have the environmental concerns addressed and flushed out, which I know is all part of the process. And once that has happened, in my mind, it's also absolutely foolish not to move forward with a plan to develop this area. A lot of us have seen around the state areas that are undeveloped or underdeveloped or not maintained, and that's not an alternative that I'd like to see for this area. Understood.
All right, good. Anything else?
Yep.
Bill?
Carl.
Yes, sir.
We're going to hire another consultant.
Yes, sir.
Is it one of the ones that we've used for the last years that we've been investigating the DRGR?
Well, I'll tell you, we plan to be pretty open in the selection process. So what we plan to do process-wise is if the council approves this scope of work today with the changes that have been discussed here, we're going to put this into a document and put it out on the street. And it's going to be a request for qualifications, and any individual, qualified individual or firms or group of firms can reply to that. We're going to pick the best qualified individual to do that, and we'll go from there. So is it possible that somebody who's worked on this before would be considered? Yes. Will they be selected? We don't know. It's going to kind of depend on the pool of candidate that actually comes in and shows interest in doing this job.
Do you have any idea what it's going to cost?
Well, sir, I'll tell you, I don't know. We will find that out in this process. We want to try to, and I've talked to John Dolmer about this, and we want to try to make sure that the scope is pretty narrow on this so we get the exact answers we need to get and not spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on this. This is not a $300,000 project. I don't even want this to be a $100,000 project. All right, and we're going to make that pretty clear to the consultants coming in.
Plus, he or she could use all the notes from the past. We have wonderful history.
Well, but you know, you're right, and that is the basis of what I brought this forward in the first place. It's like, take a look at everything else that's been done. There's good data already there. I don't want to have to recreate the wheel here. There's no need for it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, and along those lines, I think that's the best advice that we can give ourselves at this particular point in time, is that about everything that can be said about this area has been said. Okay, I mean, whether it's right or wrong or an opinion or a fact or whatever, it's been said. And so far as having so far as starting out like from ground one by having some charrettes from the public, I don't think that that's exactly a good idea at this time. I think the better way to look at this, and this is going to be up to your consultant really, the way they want to design this, would be to go ahead and have them put it together, paint a realistic picture of what an appraisal of this area and what some solutions might be, and then allow the public to say, all right, what do you think? Left-hand turn or right-hand turn? You know, well, I just did that opposite there. I don't know my left from my right.
Well, you're on camera, though, see?
Oh, there you go. That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much. God, if I only shut up. But anyway, I think that that's probably a more realistic way to look at this, and I think that that's a way to keep the cost down and to keep it realistic because, like you said, put all the information together. This is what you've got out there, and these are the options, and these are the limitations of it. What's your next step? And I think you can get there, and so I think this plan will allow us to do that. Yes.
I'm sorry to come in after your comment, Mayor, but I guess I'm a little confused, Carl, and maybe some of my fellow council members are, and I think Councilwoman Martin or Simons, if she was here, might ask this question. What's your concern with transfer development rights? Why do you not like transfer development rights?
I haven't seen them work anywhere. I mean, I think that the concept is great, which is basically, let's say, for example, let's take something that Nicole talked about today. All right, so let's say up in Edison Farms, which is directly north of the box, the yellow box there, that the absolute decision has been made that there's not going to be any development at all. All right, well, they still have development rights. All right, now somebody down here, we could be a receiving area for those development rights. All right, so we could get the development that otherwise would be allowed on Edison Farms. All right, so they would be protected from any further development. We would get the density and deal with the impacts of that as well. So there has to be a sending area. In this case, it would be Edison Farms, and there has to be a receiving area, which in this case would be Bonita Springs. I just haven't seen them work. I know the concept. Everybody loves the concept, but so my only concern is I haven't seen them work. We will look at that, but I just haven't been a fan because I've seen it proposed, I've seen it enacted, and nothing's happened. So, but we'll look at it, and we will be talking to the county anyway during this process.
I think also it's worth talking about, and at times I think there are times when these TDRs make complete sense when there's like Nicole had talked about, a nexus between you want to preserve this area because it's going to do Bonita some good to have that done, And of course, we want to shift the development over here. The problem in this situation may well be, and this is my predisposition, may well be that, oh, fine, if you're going to transfer development over here, the whole problem behind this has been the effect of increasing intensity and density in this area. That's really the crux of this matter, is that, I mean, increasing the density in that area, we could do that with a stroke of a pen.
That's right.
But what are the consequences for that area? How are you going to deal with the infrastructure? That's really the question here. What, adding density to it, that's a simple thing to do. No matter whether you just do it kind of just by ordinance or just do it by transfer of development rights. What the real question is going to be here is going to be, how much can this stand with the infrastructure that we're able to provide or that exists?
So wherever that density comes from, whether you ordain it or whether it comes from Edison Farms or places to the north or the northeast, yes, those are the questions that has to be answered. And it's not just this area. It's not just the area inside the yellow box. You have to worry about the area south of the yellow box.
Yeah.
And we've had a couple of residents who have come in and visited with me with regards to their concerns about the DRGR and what they want to be able to do or not do with their property. So south of there is going to have to be looked at as a part of the driving density that may happen in this area.
Yeah, and there is I think it's actually, if it wasn't so heartrending and emotional, it'd be really interesting subject we'd be dealing with here. But I think that the question that a lot of people have asked is, like Rick had said a minute ago, Mr. Steinmeier, why? Right? That's a great question, and I think there's a good answer to it. I said, but I think that's going to be one of the first challenges is why. Why are we doing this? And I think that there is a good answer to do that, but I think it needs to be really, really well stated. Okay.
Well, just in
yes, go ahead. Go ahead, and I'll come back to Janet.
Just in reverse, do we not have TDR rights to send some of our development out? I mean, is there not a reverse to that? Rather than taking TDRs from Edison Farms, taking TDRs out of the DRGR?
Well, yes, in theory.
Yeah.
In theory, yes, that can be done, but it's got to be an adopted program, and you've got to be a participant.
I understand, but it is possible. I mean,
Yes,
we
it is
talked about
possible to go the
one
other
way in, but there's also the other way out.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Most likely it won't. I just wanted to say that when I was talking about clarify the meetings, yes, I agree with the mayor. That was what I meant. We have to have something to present. I don't want to start from everyone just, saying this is what I want to see. We have to present a plan and get the input. And like I said, I want everyone then to be on the same page.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
So, Council, what's your pleasure on this?
Move forward.
Move forward. Make a motion.
Make a motion. Moved.
And a second. Any other discussion?
Cool beans.
And Carl, what you'll be doing, what this does is give you the impetus to go ahead and do the selection process. You'll bring back that what are you going to do? How are you going to bring that back?
Right. Well, I think there was a request that we bring the consultant back before council before the work starts. So we plan to go through the selection process. We'll have probably a 3-member committee of executive staff interview some folks, make the decision. Once that's been done, we'll bring that person back for council so that person has the opportunity to hear from all of you as to the importance of this project and what your concerns are.
Can you please, for our edification and for the public's too, at some time along there, make it clear to all the council that it's really important for us not to interject into that positive or that process. In other words, so far as us contacting these individuals that we find out, it's important that we don't taint that process, is it not?
And I think Audrey can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think we have language in the actual body of the document going out indicating that there are prohibitions against them lobbying you in reverse also. Is that true,
It
Audrey?
will be subject to disqualification. the
Good,
usual language.
and could you please send us a friendly reminder, all of us, of that?
Yes, sir.
Because we want this to go right. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slackton?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
All right. Okay, you got anything else for us, Carl?
Yes, sir. First off, I just want to let you know that, and I think I sent you all emails. We have submitted to our local legislative
I'm
delegation.
sorry, we done with this?
Yes,
Mayor?
we are done with
Can we
that.
lights up, please? Thank you, Bill.
And you can take that off the screen if you will.
We have sent to
Thanks, Bill.
Carol Green, our lobbyist, the legislative priorities that were adopted by council last fall. Basically, a brief statement of what each of them, what we oppose, what we support, and gives Carol some direction as well. The local delegation will have their annual meeting on January 29th. I think the mayor in the past has been the representative of the city, and I would ask if the council would support him in doing that again this year with the priorities that have been sent forward to the delegation. There's, as you recall, there's about 5 or 6 items on there, and obviously I think most of the time, just a suggestion, Mayor, most of the time needs to be on the slots, the slot gaming. So if council will...
Council, would that be all right with you?
Is that all right?
Good, good.
Okay,
Head
good.
nod's good.
All right, and then the last thing I have is something that's been in the news recently, and it's an action that's being proposed before Lee County. And that is the elimination of impact fees for a 2-year period. And I think they are reaching out, the county is reaching out to look for positions from the city, and I know I'm hitting you kind of cold on this, but I'm sure you're aware of the issue. And whether or not the council wants to take a position on the actual reduction of impact fees or the elimination of impact fees for the next 2 years is something that I will leave to you. I will tell you that I personally have not seen much empirical data that reducing impact fees actually works, actually produces additional development. And I think John was pointing out that there was an article where Collier County has had double the amount of building activity that Lee County has, and their impact fees have always been higher than Lee County's. So there probably ought to be some discussion as to whether it's important enough to do that. The issue that I have concern for the city of Bonita Springs and actually for our fellow municipalities throughout Lee County is that in 2011 there was an interlocal agreement on gas tax use that was adopted by this council and I'm sure by councils in the other municipalities. And part of that indicates that if there's not enough funds in the county to pay for their debt service, okay, a lot of which is done through their impact fees, all right? Just like us, we pay for a lot of our debt service through our impact fees. That if there's not enough money, the county has the authority to withhold our gas tax, our own gas tax that they pass through. So I think if the county wants to reduce their impact fees, that's a decision for the commissioners. But I think we ought to make it very clear, and I'm looking for authority for somebody to go to the county or send them letters or whatever to make it very clear that any financial decision they make like this at the county cannot and should not adversely impact any of the municipalities, and especially, of course, Bonita Springs. Of our $1.3 million in impact fee or in gas tax that we have budgeted each year, $650,000 is budgeted for handling our own debt service. All right, so we can't afford any of that going away. So those are my concerns. They will be holding a public hearing on this on January 22nd. You will not be meeting again before that date. I would just like to get some guidance from council as to what you'd like us to do.
Council, any comments about this? Yes, Bill.
My comment is quite frank, ridiculous. I have done a lot of looking at information, and just to give the people here in the audience and at home to realize, just in residential here in Bonita Springs in the next 12 to 24 months, the Colony, Quail West, Spanish Wells, Hawthorne, Palmyra, Bonita Lakes, Bonita Isles, Village Walk are all actively building residential structures or will be, and we are in a very good position because we also need those impact fees to pay debt service. We need those gas taxes, which are going to increase because of the baby boomers. We're going to have a lot of new people here in Southwest Florida. I know I've noticed it here in my own community in Worthington Country Club. the number of new faces that I don't know. And of course, the many Canadians that are coming down and seeing great value here in Southwest Florida. So I really believe that we are on the right track, and with your leadership, Carl, obviously, and John's and Audrey's, we should stay on track and not jeopardize our wonderful situation that we have coming down the road. Thank you.
I would like to be clear, though, that a decision at the county level with regards to their impact fees does not impact our own impact fees. That's a decision this group would have to make separately.
Right.
Okay.
I'm going to interject something here, too. We've had this discussion with Commissioner Kiker and the other mayors in the area here. We had our 5 mayors meeting last night and talked just a little briefly about this. In my opinion, I think I understand the reaction that the county's feeling that, oh, we have to do away with impact fees. If we're going to be pro-growth, let's do away with impact fees. I think the realities are quite different, though, in my mind, is that infrastructure is important. Infrastructure is number one. If you don't have good infrastructure, you don't have good quality of life. If you don't have good quality of life, people don't want to move here. If you don't have good infrastructure, you don't have good economic development because businesses don't want to move here. So, you know, before you start talking about doing away with your main source of paying for infrastructure, what's your plan on replacing that? You know, and if it's user fees or whatever, yeah, I really don't see that as a viable option. The other problem I have with what the county doing, the couple of the problems I have with it is that we're partners with the county on a couple of roads, Bonita Beach Road, for example, and we didn't mind coming in and being 50% of that option, but it was hard enough for the county to raise their part of the money without them doing away with their impact fees for this district altogether. And my question to them was like, how are you going to pay for Bonita Beach Road? What's your plan? It needs it now. I mean, we're supposed to be in that planning process now. So I mean, and so it is going to have a direct effect upon our ability for our infrastructure. And I think it was a good thing that the city of Bonita Springs decided to go 50-50 with them on that. But we're not going to do 100% of the road. We can't do it. The other thing is that so far as it creating something to where it sends the message that they want the development and the density to occur in unincorporated Lee County, when actually everything else, all good planning, points towards you want the density. I think most everyone agrees you want the density to happen in the municipalities. You want the growth to happen in municipalities. That way it becomes more walkable, transportation becomes easier. You don't want to create a system of density throughout the unincorporated areas. So my question is, what's your plan? Why are you trying to do that? So what I've been trying to do is convince the county commission to, if you want to do that, then go ahead and concentrate those benefits, the forgiveness of those impact fees in the specific area where you may, in that diamond, in your industrial development diamond by the airport. Maybe concentrate it there. If you really want to spur some industrial development near the airport, then use it there. But please don't do a countywide swath on the thing, because I think that it's going to affect all of us in that manner. And of course, that's my opinion on the thing, but I think the infrastructure is too important. And I think that I would hope that our council would take that position, that we understand the compulsion that they have to do that, but we would hope that they would kind of put that on a shelf there for a while. I think we're going to do fine without doing that. Council, what's your opinions on this?
I'm very supportive of this.
Right,
Just go
okay.
ahead.
Likewise.
Maintain the impact fees.
All right.
We
want to go ahead and send a signal to them that we would rather we keep the impact fees the way they are,
right,
understanding that it is their decision to make, but that we are concerned with the effects it's going to have on the cities and our ability to provide infrastructure and their ability to provide infrastructure.
All right, so use the points that the mayor just
Absolutely.
articulated, as well as our concern about financial problems with the gas tax
Absolutely.
for us.
Exactly.
Okay, and would you like that communication to be done by email, letters to them, or do you want us to actually, somebody to appear before them on the 22nd?
I would think that both. I think that you should, there should be a letter that comes from us that specifically articulates our concerns, specifically and politely.
Sure.
Articulates our concerns, and then we'll figure out, who could make that meeting, whether it's Carl or myself or one of the council people, to go ahead and reinforce that. And I think we can do it in a real respectful manner, realizing that, this is your decision to make, but we're just trying to give you the benefit of our perspective. That's it. Yes, go ahead.
Mayor, your fellow mayors, are they all feeling the same?
They're a little bit across the board here, but they all have the same kind of concerns, which is, if you're not going to raise money for infrastructure in that manner, what's your plan?
Yeah.
And so far, it's been a little bit all over the place. I mean, and one of the responses was, well, we're going to use gas taxes for that. And of course, my response was, no, you're not. Gas taxes is one at the MPO. We're talking about gas taxes are dwindling because we're using less gas all the time, and nobody is going to increase gas taxes. They're not going to raise the percentage of gas tax. They're just not going to do it. So that's going to be to decide. So I think that's going to be the real challenge. Is that fine, it's one thing to say that, but what's your plan? What's your real plan? So
okay.
So if everybody's all right with that, well.
Good.
We can go ahead and do that.
That's great. We will do that, and that's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, where are we at?
Mayor and council member items.
Mayor and council member items. Let's start. Bill, are you prepared?
I'm prepared to say,
do we?
I already said it.
I have an
So
item.
I'll get back
I
to
don't
that.
have to, this was going to be my comment about the growth in the city, so I'll pass.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Janet, you have one on
Thanks.
here, the resolution
I
appointing a member to
do.
City Bonita Springs.
We have a
Tree Advisory.
vacancy on the tree board created by Mr. Trudenex departing from the area, and if allow me the privilege, I would love to nominate Mr. Ben Kurz. He is a Bonita Springs resident, and his many qualifications include environmental science degree, and he is also a landscape designer, and I think he would make a great addition to our wonderful volunteers on that board.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Multiple seconds. Take your choice. And any other comments? Roll call, please.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slackton?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Okay, what else do you have for us, Jen?
I've got a couple of things. On Saturday, February 16th, from 9 in the morning to 1 in the afternoon, our Bonita Springs own recreation center is doing a walk-in and wagon dog walk over at the rec center. So call the rec center for more information. I think that's going to be a really fun event. And based on the fact that we are a very dog-friendly community, the Art and Public Places Board has secured Mr. Dale Rogers' big dog sculptures, and they will be coming, and they are big dog sculptures. They will be coming to Bonita Springs from Orlando, so this is pretty neat, and they will be in the Lyles Historic Plaza Park area where we do Riverfest in the green on the grass for 8+ weeks. They're going to sit here until he's moving them off to another city. So we're going to be having, the Art and Public Places Board will be having a meet and greet with the artist himself on March 15th. It's a Friday evening at the Lyles Plaza, so we hope that everyone will come out and support that. The Art League is involved, and it will be a really fun night. Also in our park, Riverside Park, coming up is Movies in the Park. I love Movies in the Park. That is such a fun, neat time, and the kickoff movie is Grease. Now, little birdie told me there's going to be some folks coming dressed up and ready to dance along and have a good old time. It should be a lot of fun. So that's 7 p.m. on January 26th. The Bonita Springs Historical Society is doing their 16-week series every Wednesday at Community Hall, and they have speakers, and they do it at 2 p.m. in the afternoon and then again at 7 p.m. in the evening, and it is open to everyone. You don't have to be just a member of the Bonita Springs Historical Society to attend. And tonight they will be speaking about the Calusa Indians culture. Next Wednesday, it will be about Ponce de Leon, and then on the 30th, it will be about the arrival of the European explorers to this area. So it's all exciting, fun stuff about the area. Hope you can make that. And then the last thing Kathy had mentioned, I am so proud of our council, and thank you for sticking with all of the volunteers for the Nature Place, because the News Press reporter, Lindsay Downey, did an article on the perfect park. And the Bonita Nature Place made her list of perfect parks, and that list also has Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary and Crescent Park. The Nature Place made that. I am so proud of us for persevering and doing that because it's working. It's doing exactly what we set out for it to do, and it's making the big time. So thank you so much, Council, for hanging in there with me on that, and staff. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Steve, what do you have for us?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to thank you, Kathy McGrath, and also Richard Fiera for that monofilament project. Your passion is certainly evident, and thank you again because it's really been a marvelous, marvelous project. For those of you who read the news press yesterday, that Christina wrote about the appointment of Chief Daigle as their new fire chief and the approval of the contract. She was very professional and respectful, not to indicate how long that took to approve, but finally got approved. And so on February 1st at 4:30, there'll be a change of command, and following that at Hunter's Ridge will Chief Kinsey's retirement. The other thing is congratulations on your second year anniversary at Spotlight, Peter. So appreciate all the work that you've done for this community. Thank you. And that's it, Mayor.
Good. Pete, what do you have for us?
Last week at the curriculum committee meeting, Lee County Schools, people have heard a lot about the FCAT testing in public schools, and I apologize, I don't have the name of the new test, but Florida's moving to a new standardized national test that's been adopted primarily by the southern states and the East Coast states and a few Midwest states at this point, and there's kind of a other Western California model, if you will, that's being adopted by the Western states primarily. But it's going to get away, and it's going to be a 3-year phase-in. And right now, the phase-in has happened for the lower grades. Next year, it will focus on the middle school and then the high school. So for all the FCAT drama and nightmares that we've heard, it sounds like not only is this more of a national test, it's more of the way the questions are asked and what it's asking of students, they believe is much more thought-provoking. So I think that's fantastic news. I also wanted to commend State Representative Trudy Williams for her 8 years of service in the Florida legislature. That is outstanding. She's done a great job for this area. And just want to call quick attention for those of you that didn't see it, the article for State Senator Garrett Richter, who's chairing, as most of us know, the Senate Gaming Committee. I want to commend him for his comments in that article, where historically gaming decisions have been compulsive, but now the process will be based on numbers, data, and reason, and getting the correct information, not misinformation, from gambling interests, Walt Disney World interests, but the actual interests and the issues. I commend him for the approach that he's taking, and I would call your attention to that article and contact him with your thoughts and your concerns, because obviously that is a very big issue for us here in Bonita Springs and the region. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And Bill, you don't have anything for us. Okay. Steve, go ahead. Just checking.
Okay.
Checking.
All right. Okay, thank you. 3 or 4 things. Saturday the 26th, San Carlos Estates has its annual yard sale. There'll be 100 homes with yard sales. It's open to the public. Please come and get all the stuff you wanted to get out of your garage earlier and put it back in. And
can we just dump it off there?
Yeah, it's fine. Not in my district. FGCU, Florida Gulf Coast University, put out its spring programs for the Renaissance Academy. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, it's an adult learning program that is very minimally priced and extremely interesting, everything from archaeology to astronomy. Third, the Art League of Bonita Springs has its annual Off the Walls project coming up this weekend, where you come in, buy a ticket, and they draw names, and all the artists who have been in the various Art League and art shows have donated projects, so it's a great opportunity to add some new art to your home. Fourth, Carl, would you please take a look? The Bonita Springs Concert Band, if you go out on Sundays, a lot of people are sitting clear to the back under the trees to get some shade. Would you check and see if we can't get some sort of covers put out like we do a lot of times for, just see what it would cost the city or them to, because it's a benefit to the city. The concert band does a great job for us, but the people can't get close enough because of the heat to be able to sit close. And I'm sorry? Thank you. And finally, please, your thoughts and prayers going out to Councilwoman Simons on the loss of her sister, untimely. And Martha, we're thinking of you. Thank you for being with your family today.
Okay. Indeed. Yeah, I'd like to start off. I'd like to thank Councilman McIntosh for all your hard work working with the ECCL. I know it can be a bit of a challenge there, and they've done a great job in promoting that area and doing what they need to do. And thank you so much for your patience that you've shown in working with them and persevering with keeping us as close friends and finding other ways for us to work together. So thank you very much.
Welcome.
Along those lines, I did get an invite from the ECCL to meet the new group there, and Nick Bedos and the new group at ECCL. Carl came with me. We had a very interesting meeting, and I think a real productive meeting. It's always good to get to know your neighbors better, and I think we accomplished that. That's for certain. I also want to let you know that last night we're kicking off a series of mayors meetings here. It's a great thing. Over the last 5 years, I've gotten to know all the mayors in the area really well through our 5 mayors dinner meetings that we've been having. I had another one last night, and what we're going to do, it's going to turn into something I think really good here. I think it's on the 30th, 1 p.m. on the 30th. The city mayors and the managers are all going to meet together and talk about a lot of the things we have in common. The one particular thing that we think that is just really going to be something different for the future here is that the county's role and the city's role is going to swap here. It does in every community. There's always some resistance to change there. There always is. For a long time, the county that you're in, while the cities are the smaller of the population areas, well, the county is the kind of the parent in the situation. It's hard to shake that. I mean, and when you've got cities the size of Cape Coral and our city and Fort Myers, and when you consider all those things and the needs that they have, and quite frankly, our ability, we are adults and we have an ability to take care of a lot of these things ourselves. Well, that relationship needs to change, and Larry Kiker, Commissioner Kiker, he's going to be a really good friend for us in that regard, to where we can look towards the future and go ahead and start changing that relationship a little bit towards everyone's benefit, especially our county. It's still our county. We want our county to be successful and to be efficient, and I think that we can help that to happen. Also on the 30th or the 24th, I'm going to be sitting on the mayor's panel for the CCM and do some more promotion along the lines of what Carl's been doing, of what we do here in Bonita Springs and how we do it. I'll be proud to do that. Everyone remember the Horizon Council's 25th annual lunch. I'd like to see a lot of you there. It's really good business for us to be up there and to promote Bonita Springs in that regard. Congratulations to Hunters Ridge on their groundbreaking on their sound wall. They worked really hard for that, as did Councilman Longcart and a lot of other people. So that's coming up there on Thursday. This is a busy week. Friday's the Crew Trustees meeting. Looking forward to that, and I will possibly become the chairman of the crew. That is a great honor for me because I've got a lot of history with that, and I'm going to be really proud to be that representative there if that comes to fruition. Also, 5 p.m. This week, I think it's Friday. Art Off the Walls, yes. Right? Nice for the Art League. They're having that. That's a great fundraiser and a lot of fun if any of you get a chance to do that. And then we've got the Lee County Legislative Days we talked about, and it'd be my pleasure to go ahead and speak there. We'll go over that again at another date. And basically that's it for me. And then, Council, you don't have anything else, council persons?
Approval of minutes? So
approval
moved.
of minutes, so moved. We have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Roll call.
Councilman Longcart?
Aye.
Councilman McIntosh?
Aye.
Councilwoman Martin?
Aye.
Councilman Slechta?
Aye.
Mayor Nelson?
Aye.
Councilman Simmons?
Aye.
Okay, and at this time, public comment. Anyone wishing to speak on any matter, please come forward.
Yeah. Okay, Rick Steinmeier, article, well, last Thursday I was, unfortunately, I was present for the LPA presentation of the ordinance that was put together, and as the newspaper here on Friday says, city begins to rewrite the homeless shelter rules. 90% or 100% of that ordinance that was put together over this period of time was thrown out by our attorney and our hired attorney. I don't think anybody's going to be satisfied with what's left of this. I think that the moratorium can be extended, but that takes time in order to get the extension. I'd like to put that to a discussion at the next council meeting. It's going to come back to the LPA in February, but this is what we wrote, or what they wrote. I wasn't involved with writing the ordinance. They find everything was wrong with it. Unconstitutional, this is discriminated against, blah, 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 blah. Rights to the homeless, nobody else has rights except the poor people. So I think we need to extend that so we can rework this so and make more people happy. Thank you. Oh, excuse me, and then these big dogs are going to leave a big footprint in our lawns. If they sit there for 8 weeks, we're going to have to replace new sod or something. I think that needs to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else this time, please come forward.
Hi, Dave McKee again. I don't want to belabor the issue of the East Bonita study, but I wanted to hear what everybody had to say, and I know Carl was working from the same email that I have in my package. So just a couple quick things. Mr. Mayor, you hit the nail on the head, and the big question is why? And I think that should be addressed in the study, and it was not discussed here. I think maybe the study should include some analysis of what this will do to the city's tax base and how that could help the city. And secondly, I think we all know that this could be a generator of jobs over the next 10 to 20 years as projects are built out there. And I think that's something that you need to look at, especially with all the discussions that went on today with the EDC about creating jobs and opportunities for people. So maybe you could include those two in the study. The other thing, obviously I represent BSU, but I'm also a private property owner in the city and I pay taxes. And the one thing I want everybody to make clear is it's my position, and I think everybody else's, that everything that gets done out there pays for itself. No tax money whatsoever. If you've got to build a $20 or a $25 million overpass over the interstate, which I think is something that needs to be very specifically looked at here, that number needs to be added into the study. And if you form an MSBU or some sort of special services unit out there, that number needs to be added in to create a super impact fee or some sort of assessment. Please make sure that's in the study as well. The last item, and Carl did address it, he did leave out the south area, and I understand why he did that, and we've had some discussions on that. The only thing I would remind people is water quality is a huge issue out there. And for those of us that lived here in the late 80s and early 90s when we had high levels of fecal coliforms in the Imperial River, what did we do? We expanded the sewer system to include the whole city. I think that's something you want to look at out there. Again, BSU stands ready to work with you guys to do anything that we can to help with water quality. Thank you.
Good deal. Thank you, Dave. Anyone else this time? Please come forward. Yep, that's you.
The last word.
Kathy McGrath. I always like to end the meetings with a smile. First of all, I didn't get a chance to thank Nicole Perino. She is such an asset. It's so great having her with the city. I can't believe it's been 5 years. And kind of in that vein, this is your smile, is I finally took advantage of something I won 15 months ago, which was a free year's membership at the rec center with 3 personal training sessions with the personal training there. So Mandy took me under her arms and my arms and the rest of my body on Monday, and she is excellent. And she has assured me, ladies and gentlemen, that when she finishes with me, I'm going to have arms like Michelle Obama. I don't think so. So thank you very much Then
They're going to have to get longer.
no, they need to. They need to
I'm
get.
just saying.
They need to get firmer, is what they need.
Oh, I see.
There's no hope. But anyway, listen, they have a great facility there in Nicole. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, mission accomplished. You made me.
She
made
left us
everybody
with that smile.
Nicely done. Anyone else this time, please come forward. That's going to be hard to beat, but go ahead and try it. Go ahead, I dare you. Now, everybody, thank you very much. Nice meeting.